it was honestly hard to read because being in his mind was not something that it was very uncomfortable. I'm getting flushed. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Alisha, and today we're going to be discussing the 12 books I read in March. I don't know if you can tell, but it's so gray outside today, and I have like every light on, and I'm wearing this bright blue shirt. I have a matcha because I'm just trying to bring in spring vibes. It's been like between 75 and 80 here all last week, and then today and yesterday it dropped into the 40s and it snowed. So I'm trying to bring spring vibes back. How we're going to do this is if I finished a book in March, I'm going to count it as read in March. Even if I started it in February, or if I started a book in March and ended it and finished it in April, that's going to go in April's wrap up. So we're just going to go in order of how I read them because that's the way that the notes give it to me, and it's going to be, that's the easiest way it's going to be. I love Storygraph because it's so easy to sort things the way that I need them. I just go to March of this month and it pulls up all the books I read. The first book I finished in March is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This book is about Celine and Bradley. They are two high school students who used to be best friends but kind of had a falling out for whatever reason. Celine is obsessed with conspiracy theories, and she has many followers on her social media accounts that kind of follow different conspiracy theories. Bradley is diagnosed with OCD, but he's also a football player, and he's kind of the cool kid, so they don't really talk anymore. They're forced together in this wilderness survival program, and they're forced to kind of rekindle their friendship and see if anything more comes of it. But this book is very cute. I did the audiobook for this. It's the same author as the Brown Sisters trilogy, which is an adult romance trilogy, and I loved all of those. This book is definitely more YA. The characters feel younger, which I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's a good thing. I think if a book is written for 16-year-olds, it should feel relatable to 16-year-olds. So if that's not something you enjoy, then maybe this book's not for you, but I really liked it. The next book I finished is Behind the Scenes by Corelia Stutz-Waters, and this is the only book that I read in March that I actually have the physical copy of. Everything else was either an ebook or an audiobook, but I do have the physical copy of this one. And I saw this one in Barnes & Noble, and I just had to pick it up because 1, the spine is yellow, which looks great on my rainbow shelves, and 2, it just looked super fun. Sorry, the cat is sniffing the microphone right now. I don't know if you can hear that. She's very curious about everything. There's pugs on the cover. It's a sapphic romance. It's got bright colors. Immediately, I had to pick it up. This book is about Rose and Ash. Rose is I think she's in her mid-30s consultant for a business firm, and she has a secret kind of YouTube channel doing ASMR videos on the side that she doesn't, it's kind of her passion project, and she doesn't tell anybody about it. And Ash is a director that's basically been blacklisted from the film industry because of a big scandal that happened with her and her ex-wife. And they meet one day, I think because Ash's assistant reaches out to Rose to help Ash with her next big project, and then they end up working on this project together, and it's a romance, so I'm sure you can assume what happens from there. But I found this one really cute. I haven't been super into romance this year. I think I've finished maybe 5, and I've DNF'd probably close to double that. So anytime I find a romance that actually grabs my attention, then it's a big win. It's sapphic, it's got pugs in it, it's got an older female main character. I mean, what else could you ask for? I gave that one 4 stars. Mischief Maker. This little girl. Aren't you? The next 2 books I read are by the same author, but they're not in the same series. They do take place in the same school, though, and that is The Obsession and The New Girl by Jessie Q. Sutanto. Luna, can you go lay down? They're both young adult thrillers, and I'd say I enjoyed them pretty equally. The New Girl follows Leah, who is obviously new to this prestigious boarding school called Draycott. She has won a full ride there on a track scholarship, but when she gets there on her first day, she sees a girl screaming and kicking and being hauled away by campus security. So immediately she's like, okay, something weird is going on here. And then kind of as the days go on, not very many people are treating her very kindly. Somebody is blackmailing her, and there's this teacher who just kind of seems really corrupt and doesn't seem like he has the best interest in the students. Basically, the students there are trying to bully her into leaving. So if she wants to stay and get, be on this track scholarship, then she has to figure out what's going on, and she uncovers some secrets and maybe just some things that are going on kind of in the underbelly of the school. I don't remember specific details of this book because I did read it in the beginning of the month, and then because the obsession also takes place in the same school and is by the same author, I am getting some of the plot details confused between the two books. But I did end up giving this book 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it if you like young adult thrillers or young adult mysteries, and you want a fast-paced, fun read. The obsession follows Delilah, and Delilah is not having a good time at all. She is currently living with her mom and her stepdad. Her stepdad is a total jerk. He doesn't treat Delilah or her mom very well at all. He's very demanding. He doesn't respect them, and he's just a complete overall jerk. This book also follows Logan, who sees Delilah one day and becomes immediately obsessed with her. He starts stalking her. He follows her home one day, plants cameras across the street from her house. Very creepy. It was honestly hard to read because being in his mind was not something that it was very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable being in his point of view because he was just so obsessed with her, and it was creepy. I'd say, the author did a really good job. One day, I don't know if this is in the synopsis or if this is a spoiler. Let me see no, this is in the synopsis. Okay. So one day Delilah's at home and her stepdad is working. I think he's like changing the oil or something underneath the car in the garage, and he's yelling at Delilah to do something. And Delilah comes down and she, gives him whatever she wants, and he's just being a complete jerk to her, and she just has it and kicks the jack out from underneath the car, and it ends up crushing and killing her stepdad. Because Logan had planted the cameras across the street from Delilah's house and the garage door is open, this is all unknowingly to Delilah caught on camera. Then Logan goes back and checks the recording. He sees this happening, and then boom, he has, I should back up. So Logan becomes obsessed with Delilah, and then he, kind of pursues her. She doesn't know that he's a creep at all. She just knows that he's being nice to her. So he pursues her. They end up going out on a date. The date goes pretty well. They come back to her house, and he ends up saying too much. I think he confesses his love for her, and she's like, "Whoa, wait, what are you talking? We've just met. We've just started talking. You don't love me. Like, we don't know each other that well. What are you talking about?" And she gets kind of like the ick, and she goes to leave. And then he tells her that he saw what happened in the garage that day. So he ends up blackmailing her into them being together. So he's like, if you don't hang out with me, if you don't spend, he's under the belief that if she spends enough time with him, then she'll love him just as much as he loves her. So he blackmails her into basically pretending that they're boyfriend and girlfriend. He doesn't really think they're pretending. She obviously does. She's out from underneath her awful stepdad, but now she has Logan and this blackmail stuff hanging on her. When the police come to investigate the death, she tells them that it was an accident, that the jack just fell and it crushed him. And for the most part, they believe her. So then the book really follows Delilah trying to figure out what to do while also freaking out that she's going to be caught, that she was the one that kicked the jack out, and Logan trying to convince her that she really does want to be with him. This book was very fast-paced. Again, it was a very quick read. I think I read it all in one night. I ended up giving it 4 stars because the end was a little too unbelievable and a little too crazy for me, and I feel like there was still some loose ends kind of left untied. Maybe she'll address those in, another novel if she continues with this kind of Dracot Academy setting. So, I don't know. But I did end up giving that one 4 stars. I have really enjoyed everything so far that I've read by Jessie. I think I've read 5 or 6 books of hers this year. I really highly recommend most, I haven't read everything, but I do recommend anything of hers that's a mystery. I think I've read. All right, Mom, if you're watching, this is where you turn it off. The next book I read was called Tinsel and Tangled by Trilina Pucci, I think is how you pronounce her name. This is actually a holiday novella. It's a holiday romance novella. It's a reverse harem. And yes, I did read a holiday romance book in March because I felt like it. So this was basically purely smut. It was just a fun reverse harem to read around the holidays. I'd say if you're looking for something like that, it was a really good one. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I didn't rate it because there was no plot. So I'm getting flushed. Very quickly, the main character is decorating this big fancy house for the holidays because there's going to be a holiday party, and then a big snowstorm happens, and her and the four guys get snowed in, and I'm sure you can assume what happens. So if you are looking for a good short holiday reverse harem, I highly recommend this one. I feel like it's getting darker by the minute. Next, I read the entire Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. I read Caraval, Legendary, and Finale. And if you haven't heard of this book, or this series, this book follows Donatella and Stella Scarlet. Duh, because he calls her Mahogany. What does Julian call her? Crimson. He calls her Crimson. Okay. It's a fantasy young adult series, and follow two sisters who get invited to this legendary board game on an island. Is kind of how I pictured it in my head. The person that runs the game's name is Legend. He's very mysterious. Nobody knows what his real identity is. And I think at the end of the game, you get a wish granted. So in Caraval, we follow Scarlet and Tella, and they go to this island and they to play Caraval. And they get separated, and not everything is as it seems. We follow Scarlet and her point of view, and you don't know, and she doesn't know what's real, what's fake, who you should trust, who shouldn't you trust, where did her sister go. So we're following her as she progresses through the game to try to figure out where her sister went, or like to be reunited with her sister. I had actually read Caraval back when it first came out, and I didn't like it that much. I didn't read a ton of fantasy at the time, so I don't know if maybe that's why, or if I've just changed as a reader, because it was, I think, in like 2017, so it's been a while. And I initially reread this entire series because I've been hearing so many great things about Once Upon a Broken Heart that I wanted to read this first so that I had the basis of this before going into that. I would say my favorite of the series is Legendary, which is book number 2. We mostly follow Tella in that one, and I just prefer her as a character. I think Scarlet can be really frustrating sometimes, and I don't enjoy or really understand the decisions that she makes all of the time, so I enjoyed following Tella and her story. As far as ratings go, I gave Caraval 3.75 stars, I gave Legendary 5 stars, and I gave the last one, Finale, 3 stars. I do have the paperback version of Once Upon a Broken Heart sitting in my office right now, and I'm trying to get a few other books finished and wrapped up before I dive into that one, but I'm very excited to read it. Next, I read Killjoy by Holly Jackson, which is the prequel novella to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book follows Pip, where she gets invited to a murder mystery themed dinner party with her friends. I think the author meant this to be the reason, we get to see the reason why Pip is so obsessed with murder mysteries and the things that she is in the actual full-length series. I found this really fun. I gave it 4.25 stars. I highly recommend it if you like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and you want to read more. The next 2 books I read were 2 Riley Sager books. I read The House Across the Lake and Survive the Night. And spoiler, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I liked Survive the Night better. So Survive the Night is set in 1991, and the main character Charlie needs to find a way home back to Ohio from, I think, where they're at in Pennsylvania. And she's at the rideshare board. She comes across a guy who is also looking to rideshare. His name is Josh, and then they plan to rideshare together. Charlie is also grieving from the recent death of her best friend, who was the 3rd victim of a serial killer that they call the campus killer. And so all over campus, it's been posted do's and don'ts of things to do, don't get in the car with people you don't know, don't, stay out late by yourself after dark, have a buddy. And our main character, Charlie, just basically ignores all of that when she accepts this ride. Charlie has hallucinations, and she's not sure what's real and what's not real. For whatever reason, she starts taking her medication. So what we're working with is an unreliable narrator. Can we trust what Charlie's saying she's seen? Can we not? So she gets in the car, and most of this, I'd say 95% of this book, is them in the car driving to Ohio where they're supposed to be. Because of certain things that happen, Charlie starts to think, is she in the car with the campus killer? But can we trust her, what she thinks she's seeing? Is she actually seeing what she thinks she's seeing? It's an unreliable narrator. And the whole book is basically, is Charlie going to survive the night in the car with Josh? I understand the criticisms about this book. I would say that the decisions that Charlie makes are pretty stupid. But I don't know. I judge books based on how much fun I had, and I thought that this book was really fun. I thought it was funny, and I just had a good time reading it. I don't remember. I gave it 4 stars. I don't remember if I said that or not. It was just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that one. And then the other, like I said, the other Riley Sager book I read was The House Across the Lake. And I know this one is very popular, and I can understand why it's very popular. It's about our main character, Casey, who is living in a house on the lake. And she is living alone, and she's currently living in this lake house because she's kind of been forced to by her mom. She's an actress, and she's kind of had a couple too many big scandals, so her mom kind of forced her to go live at the lake house and just get away from, the media, get away from everything, kind of get your life back together kind of thing. So one day Casey's at the house, and she's, sitting on her porch or looking out her window or whatever, and she sees the people who live across the street from her. The wife is a model, and she sees her drowned. So she goes and saves her from the lake, and, they get to talking, and they kind of become friends. And then, a couple nights later, Casey's, again, drinking, looking out the window. She sees the couple across the lake fighting, and she thinks she hears something. And then the next morning, the wife is missing. So this is kind of the same thing as Survive the Night. We're dealing with a very unreliable narrator. We don't know if what Casey is seeing is real, or if it's happening because she's drunk, or she's, dreaming or whatever. So we don't know what's real. Casey doesn't really know what's real. And we're following her trying to figure out what happened to her neighbor. I would say the way this one went, I'm not sure if I liked. I thought it was very compelling. I thought the twists were very interesting, but there was a couple of the twists where I thought to myself, how did we not know this before? Like, why, if the characters had this information, how did it not come out yet? So I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give anything away. I do think it's worth reading. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. If you like Riley Sager, it's good. It's definitely worth reading, but it just wasn't my favorite of his. I'd say so far I've read 3, those 2, and then Home Before Dark, and Home Before Dark is definitely my favorite. And the last and final book I read in March was 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. And I know I've already talked about this book, but I will gladly talk about it one more time. It's a novella in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. It comes before the events of The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And it follows our main character, Lilith, who is a 30-year-old scientist. And she is trying to figure out a cure for the illness that is plaguing both her city and her sister. During her research, she comes across that maybe she could use vampire blood to help with this cure. And there's a vampire who lives kind of on the outskirts of the town. So she goes and she treks out there, and she visits the vampire, and she discusses his plan with him, and they come up with a sort of agreement. And the novella just follows kind of their relationship that builds during the time that she is working on this research for the cure. I know I've said this before, but this book, I think it's only like 150 pages. It's very short, but it made me cry. I still haven't cried at a book in a very long time. And just the story that the author was able to build in such a short amount of time, I thought was really impressive. We'll get to see these characters again. I'm not sure if they're in the Ashes in the Star Cursed. I don't remember. Ashes in the Star Cursed, whatever book 2 of the Crowns of Nyaxia series is. I don't know if these characters are in that book. I think they are, but I know they'll be in more books down the line. So I'm very excited to read about them again. I immediately fell in love with the characters. I love their relationship. I love that we have an older main character in a fantasy romance. You don't see that very often. I gave this novella 5 stars, and I am highly looking forward to reading more in this series. Those are the 12 books I read in March. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment with a book that you read in March, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!